I was born into a family where love was considered a blessing, but marriage was considered a duty. From childhood, I knew my future would not be decided by my heart. It would be woven by the hands of my parents, the elders, and the traditions that guided our village long before I opened my eyes. My mother often said that a woman's life is shaped like clay, pressed, molded, reshaped by the expectations around her. And for years, I accepted that I was clay in their hands. When I was 14, the elders quietly promised me to a man named Callow, the son of a respected cattle keeper. He was gentle, calm, and spoke softly, as if afraid his voice might disturb the world. People in the village said he would make a good husband. A safe husband. A steady husband. But no one ever asked if I wanted him. As the seasons passed, the promise turned into a plan, and the plan turned into a date. My wedding day approached like a cloud drifting slowly but surely across the sky, beautiful from afar, heavy when it finally covers you. On the outside, I pretended to be grateful. Inside, something tightened around my chest. Not fear, not anger, but the quiet ache of a life I felt slipping away before it even began. 3 days before the marriage, my mother sent me to gather herbs near the edge of the savannah. She said the leaves were needed for the cleansing ritual, a tradition to prepare a bride for her new home. I walked alone, my mind swirling with questions I didn't dare speak aloud. As I moved through the tall grass, the sun dipped low, throwing shadows across the earth. The air grew still, too still. Even the birds quieted, as if they sensed something watching. That was when I heard the low growl. I froze. A leopard stepped from behind a cluster of acacia trees, its body sleek, golden, and terrifyingly calm. Its eyes locked onto mine. My heartbeat pounded so loudly I could feel it in my throat. My legs refused to move. The world narrowed to the space between us. Just as the leopard lowered its body to pounce, a sharp whistle cut through the air. Then a blur. A spear arced past me, embedding itself in the ground near the animal's paw. The leopard snarled, startled, and turned toward the weapon. That was when he appeared. A man stepped out of the brush, tall, sun-darkened, with shoulders carved like they were shaped by the land itself. His movements were steady, precise, fearless. In his hands he held another spear, ready to throw. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply met the leopard's eyes with the same intensity it had shown me. For a moment, it felt like time paused around them. Then, with a final growl, the leopard backed away, slipping into the shadows as silently as it had arrived. My knees weakened. Before I could fall, the stranger reached me, steadying me with strong hands. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was deep, warm, and carried the calm of someone who lived closer to nature than any man I had ever known. I shook my head, unable to form words. He smiled slightly, not proudly, not triumphantly, but gently, like he understood the fear shaking through me. "You should not walk this far alone before sunset," he said. "The animals grow bold this time of year." I didn't know, I managed to whisper. He studied me with eyes darker than night and somehow brighter than firelight. There was something wild in them, but also something familiar, like he belonged to a story I had once heard but forgotten. He picked up the herbs I had dropped and placed them in my hands. "You should return home. Your family will worry." I nodded again, though the thought of leaving him felt strangely painful, as if something important would be lost with each step I took away from him. Before I left, I turned back. He was already walking toward the savannah, spear in hand, his silhouette framed by the dying sun. "Wait!" I called. He paused, half turning. I I didn't ask your name. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Not today, he said softly. But we will meet again. And then he disappeared into the tall grass as quietly as the leopard had. I stood there long after he vanished, my heart beating in a rhythm I had never felt before. A rhythm that did not belong to duty or expectation, but to something raw and alive. When I finally walked home, the sky glowing purple behind me, I knew one thing. Although I was promised to Callow, a man chosen for me by family and tradition, a part of me had already been claimed by the hunter who saved my life. And that truth frightened me more than the leopard ever could. The morning after the leopard attack, everything in the village looked the same, children running past cooking fires, cattle bells ringing softly, women pounding grain in wooden mortars. But inside me, nothing was the same. While I washed my face at the water basin, I kept seeing the hunter's eyes. The quiet strength in them. The way he had looked at me like he already knew my fear, and something deeper. Something I didn't yet understand. But I had no time to think. My wedding was approaching. Everyone treated me like a clay pot being polished for display, touched gently, handled carefully, but still an object shaped for others. My mother showed me the beads I would wear, the cloth I would tie around my waist, the hairstyle that marked me as a married woman. I nodded through everything, but my heart felt absent. Somewhere else. Somewhere in the tall grass where a stranger had saved my life. 3 days after the attack, the elders arranged a gathering for the final marriage blessing. My future husband, Callow, stood beside me. He was kind, yes. Generous too. But when he smiled at me, I felt nothing stir within me. His kindness was a warm breeze, comforting, but not unforgettable. As I stood among the elders, a sudden wind swept through the village and carried with it a familiar scent, wild plants, dust, and something earthy. My heartbeat stumbled. I turned. And there he was. The hunter. Standing at the edge of the gathering. Silent. Watching. His presence pulled the air from my lungs. He was the same, sun-bronzed skin, broad shoulders, eyes like night before rainfall. He looked at me with quiet intensity, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Callow followed my gaze. "Do you know that man?" he asked. "No," I lied. He just looks unfamiliar." Which was true. Familiar, and yet so dangerously unfamiliar. The hunter walked away before Callow could say anything else. And just like that, my thoughts were no longer mine. They belonged to him. 2 days later, I went to the river at dusk to wash the cloths for the ceremony. The water reflected the golden sky, and the air carried the soft hum of crickets waking for the night. I knelt at the riverbank, and felt a presence behind me. Before I could turn, a voice said, "You came alone again." My breath caught. He stood a few steps away, looking down at me with that same unreadable expression. "I didn't expect to see you," I whispered. "I did," he said simply. "I told you we would meet again." He walked closer, kneeling beside me. His movements were slow, deliberate, like a hunter approaching a frightened animal, careful not to startle it. "You are getting married," he said. Not as a question. As a fact. I lowered my gaze. "It is what my family wants." "And what do you want?" No one had ever asked me that before. Not my mother. Not my father. Not the elders. The question felt like a forbidden doorway. If I answered it honestly, I feared the world I knew would crumble. "I don't know," I whispered. He studied me closely, the river light glinting in his eyes. "Your spirit knows." Your heart knows. But your voice has not been allowed to speak. A single tear slipped down my cheek. I hadn't even realized I was crying. Why does it matter to you? I asked. The hunter hesitated, just for a breath. Because, he said softly, I have not stopped thinking about you since the day I found you in the grass. My chest tightened. And I cannot pretend, he continued, that you were just a woman who needed rescuing. Something in you, something in your eyes, stayed with me. My hands trembled. I pressed them to my thighs to steady myself. Callow is a good man, I murmured. I'm sure he is, the hunter replied. He will be a good husband. I do not doubt it. But I cannot, my voice cracked. He leaned closer, stopping just a breath away. But can you love him? The world around us, the river, the sky, the waking insects, melted into silence. I couldn't answer. And in my silence, he found the truth. The hunter's hands did not touch me. He did not pull me close. He simply looked at me like a man seeing his future and knowing it could never belong to him. Unless I broke everything holding me in place. I do not want to steal you, he said, voice low. I do not want to cause pain. But I will never lie about what I feel. The moment I saw you, I knew your spirit called to mine. My throat tightened painfully. This cannot happen. I know. We cannot meet like this. I know. Then why did you come? He swallowed hard, jaw tightening. Because I needed to see you, one more time. A wave of longing washed through me, deep, overwhelming, terrifying. Before I could speak, he rose to his feet. I will not come to you again, he said softly. Not unless you call me. And then he turned away, walking into the fading light, leaving me with a river full of unanswered questions and a heart that was no longer mine. But life is rarely as obedient as we wish. From that night on, every moment with Callow felt heavier. Every touch felt distant. Every smile felt borrowed. I cared for him, I truly did. But while he offered me respect, routine, and safety, the hunter had awakened something that could not be tamed by tradition. A part of me began to breathe only when he was near. And suffocate when he was not. Soon, the village began to notice the change in me. The way my gaze drifted toward the savannah at sunset. The way I flinched at Callow's gentle touch. The way the elders watched me with quiet suspicion. They sensed a storm forming inside me. One I no longer had the power to hold back. The morning of my wedding arrived dressed in gold. The sky glowed. The cattle were decorated. Drums echoed through the village like a heartbeat calling me forward. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt wrong. Women gathered around me, painting my arms with clay designs meant to symbolize devotion, harmony, and long life. Their hands were gentle, their voices soft. But no amount of beauty could silence the ache pulsing inside my chest. I wanted to be grateful. I wanted to be obedient. I wanted to be the daughter my family raised. But my heart had already betrayed me. Or maybe, it had saved me. When they placed the red cloth around my waist, the cloth that marked me as Callow's wife, I felt something inside me tighten until I could barely breathe. I told myself over and over. You will learn to love him. You must learn to love him. This is the life chosen for you. But my spirit whispered back. This is not your destiny. As the ceremony began, drums thundered through the air. Families gathered in a great circle. Elders sat under the baobab, their staffs planted firmly into the earth. Callow stood at the center, dressed in the finest cloth, proud and patient. He looked at me with gentle eyes. And I wished, truly wished, that my heart could answer him. But it didn't. And that hurt more than anything. I stepped forward, each step heavier than the last, when suddenly a ripple passed through the crowd. People turned their heads. A single figure approached from the savannah. The crowd parted slowly, murmuring. My breath caught. It was the hunter. Dust on his feet. Spear in hand. Eyes burning with something between love and war. The elders stiffened. My mother gasped. Callow's expression crumbled in confusion. The hunter stopped just outside the ceremonial circle. He did not cross the sacred boundary, he respected the law. But his presence alone broke something open inside me. Why is he here? Callow whispered. I couldn't answer. An elder rose to speak, but the hunter lifted his hand politely, asking permission. His voice, when he finally spoke, was steady and low. I am not here to take what is not mine, he said. I am here because I cannot lie about the truth in my heart. The crowd murmured louder, shocked that a stranger would speak during a marriage ceremony. The hunter continued. I will not touch her. I will not claim her. I only ask that she is allowed to choose her life freely, and not be bound by expectation alone. The elders exchanged troubled glances. Callow looked at me, not with anger, but with heartbreak. You care for him? He asked. My lips trembled. I care for you both, but differently. His shoulders sagged. Do you love him? Silence pooled between us. I didn't need to answer. My eyes had already spoken. A painful, quiet acceptance settled over Callow. He wasn't a cruel man. He wasn't a violent man. He was a man who loved gently, and lost just as gently. He stepped forward and faced the elders. I do not want a wife whose heart belongs elsewhere, he said softly. If her spirit chooses another path, I will not chain it to mine. Gasps spread through the village. A man refusing his bride? Unheard of. Unthinkable. One elder protested. You break tradition. Callow bowed his head. A marriage without love breaks something even greater. My mother's eyes filled with tears, not of joy, not of grief, but of fear. Fear of what it meant for me to defy the life she had carved for me. This will cost you everything, she whispered to me. Your name. Your land. Our family's honor. I know, I said softly. But if I stay, I will lose myself. The elders turned to me. Do you accept the release? The oldest asked. My throat tightened. Yes. The word felt like fire, and freedom. They struck their staffs against the earth, marking the end of the bond that had never truly begun. Then the hunter stepped forward, still respecting the boundary, his voice quiet. If you choose to walk with me, you walk away from this village and from everything you have known. I know, I said. You will not have the life they promised you. I know. You will live the life your heart chooses. Not the easy one. I looked into his eyes, and for the first time, I saw not danger, but a future. A future that belonged to me. I stepped out of the circle. People gasped. My mother collapsed into tears. Callow bowed respectfully. The elders looked away, unable to witness the breaking of tradition. And the hunter. He simply opened a path for me to walk beside him. I took one final breath of the air I had grown up with, the smell of clay, cattle, cooking fires, and old expectations. Then I turned my back on the life chosen for me. And walked toward the life I finally chose for myself. As we left the village, the hunter took my hand, not claiming me, not possessing me, but holding me with the gentleness of someone who understands what it means to lose everything and find something greater in return. And for the first time in my life, I felt weightless. Free. Loved.